Good morning, everyone. Morning. Hey, hey, there. I'm on camera. I'm Mary Johnson, and I'm going to be facilitating this one along with Laura McClellan, Winston Edwards, Anthony McCarran, and Jackie Walton Edwards. Winston Edwards. Winston Roberts. I know a Winston Edwards. Okay. We always start with a prayer, and Jackie is going to lead us this morning.
Oh, dear Father, thank you so very much for so many mercies and the grace that you granted us. And thank you for the Thanksgiving season that we just went through. And thank you for this Advent season that we are in. Just ask that today, as we proceed the Tuesday forum, that you just bless us, God. Those that are watching online, that they be blessed as the customer action. Yes, all these things in the name of the soon coming King.
Amen. I don't think we have any first timers here this morning with us. One here looks like our regulars. Just know, Ms. Hall, that we do have a virtual audience. So there are people who are watching. Okay. We do have a virtual, and the virtual audience, if you are virtual, you can feel free to ask a question. You can send a text and ask a question. Okay, Ms. Howell, just for you've been here before, so I know you know the process. But after you give your presentation, we'll open it up for questions, and I will take the questions in the order that they raise their hands, and then I'll call on them. And so, if no further questions, we'll let you begin.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you, the facilitators, for having me here today. My name is Frances Hall. And so before I begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself. What came to my mind as I was talking to Mr. Robinson and sitting down, he said sometimes when you have misery, it brings ministry. Misery brings ministry. And as Mr. Robinson and I were talking, he said he had a great life. I believe out of all the things that I've experienced on the negative, God has also gave me so much positive. I started, came to Charlotte years ago, almost 30 years now, from Miami, Florida. And I was leaving Miami because of the crime. When crack cocaine came on the scene in Miami, it kind of devastated the city. And so I brought my children here after their father was murdered. He was a cop, and he was murdered at the age of about 23. And we had 4 children. And I said, I had family here, and I visited before. And boy, Charlotte just took my heart for the trees, the beautiful trees in Charlotte. I said, I think I want to come back here and raise my children. And so over 30 years ago, I came here and started to raise my family, and came with little to nothing. And I was living in Greer Heights. Anybody know what Greer Heights is? I lived on Rodman Street. And by the help of my Aunt Barbara and Mr. Isom, he was the manager of Vantage 78. He gave me an opportunity to get a low-income apartment with my 4 children, and so I lived on Rodman. And at one time, I worked at Cotswold Elementary doing some as a sub teacher, and then got in the office, and I was the secretary for Elva Cooper. She was the principal of Cotswold. And long story short, it was just such a struggle to try to raise 4 children with little to no income, and their father being so young. The money that I was getting for his Social Security was just minimal. And so one day I decided that I would start my own business. And got with my Aunt Barbara, who was cleaning houses here in Charlotte for some of the richest people here. I worked with Aunt Barbara, and then I said, Aunt Barbara, let's do a little bit of look into commercial cleaning. So we got our license with the city of Charlotte. I happened to meet Elizabeth Mills. Everybody remember Elizabeth Mills? I met Miss Mills at a grocery store, Publix, I think. No, Harris Teeter. We just talked, and if y'all can remember how Miss Mills was, she was the one that told me, apply with the city of Charlotte to be a vendor. And I told her that we had this cleaning business. So I did it. And I ended up getting the police and fire academy contract and had that for 5 years as we were cleaning other commercial buildings in Charlotte. So I was sitting in a building that we had right in the South Park area. There was 2 twin buildings right across the street from South Park, and I'm sitting in the lounge area, the employee lounge. I said, "Wow, this is kind of shabby in here." And so I said, well, maybe I can give them a bid to put some new carpet down, and there was some holes in the walls, and so long story short, I went ahead and gave them, recommended, hey, you gotta boost up the lounge area for the employees. And so from that, God has a way of having you in the right place at the right time. I met a contractor who did drywall work, but he didn't know how to read blueprints. And all my life, coming from Florida, I was raised by my grandfather, who was a brick mason and a plasterer. So all my life I had been around construction, and he taught me how to read blueprints. And then also I took classes at Central Piedmont because I was preparing I went from doing cleanup work, janitorial work, I went to building maintenance. And so I said, you know what, I want to get my general contractor's license. And so I had a gentleman that did drywall work, and I said, if you teach me how to do metal framing and drywall, I'll do all your estimating free. And so for a few years, I worked in his company doing metal framing and drywall while I was estimating jobs for him. And so we got together, and his name is David Peoples. David and I got together, and we decided that we would build a metal framing and drywall and masonry company, because he said, I don't believe you can lay brick. I said, well, let me show you. So I actually went out on a job site, worked free one day, and laid, I can't do this anymore, y'all, I'm too old now, but I laid about 1,400 brick. And he said, oh my God, yeah, you really can lay brick. So David and I got together, and we started bidding on jobs around Charlotte, and we found a lot of barriers, a lot of doors were closing in our face, and we would do little projects, but nothing to really help us get to that status of economic development. So we started bidding on jobs outside of Charlotte and ended up getting the Marriott Hotel in Charleston. Anybody been to Charleston? So right there at the bay, men from Charlotte did all the metal framing, drywall, and brick masonry, and all those dormers that you see on top of the building. We did all of that. So we took about 50 men from Charlotte, and then we hired some guys locally. Well, while there, I was much younger then. I guess I was a novelty, because this girl really knows what she's doing, because I would be the one laying out where the walls went with the blueprints. So long story short, we got a call from the Corps of Engineering. They called me in and they said, we want to come on the job site. Are you interested in doing some work at Charleston Air Force Base? And that job there, I worked on the base for probably 9 years. But I also have worked on almost every base on the Southeast, doing metal framing, drywall, brick masonry, and then met a gentleman here, Peter Wute. We started doing the concrete work. And so when I returned after being gone some years, traveling all over the country and doing some work abroad for the military, when I came back, I found that a lot of the contractors that I had met through the Minority Contractors Association were still struggling, hadn't reached that kind of economic plateau that I reached traveling all over the world. So it troubled me. So I'm looking at like one guy, and I don't want to call anybody's name in this situation, but you know, he didn't even have food to eat, and he was third generation concrete contractor. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. And so we have a whole generation of contractors that had a dream, and they just didn't reach that dream. And so I took my money initially with the help of Dr. Samuel Dawkins and opened up the first mental health and substance abuse facility on Beatties Ford Road. So why did I do that? Well, here's the misery. I had to deal with a daughter that had, even though I was running from the drugs, guess what? I had to deal with her being addicted to crack cocaine. And I didn't know what to do. And I really didn't have any type of heart to work with that population. But when I had to go out in the street and run my daughter down and go in places to get her out, now my eyes were being opened to the reality of the suffering that people go through with drug addiction. And Charlotte has very heavy problem in the city. And now we got fentanyl on the scene. It's having young people just drop dead. And we're not hearing a lot about it in the news. But fentanyl is being mixed in with marijuana, with crack cocaine, and you could use it, and it could stop your heart right there. Yeah. So I started taking classes at UNC Charlotte, started taking classes at McLeod Center, and took all my money that I had saved, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and open up a mental health facility. We actually started at 2405 Roswell Ferry Road. We had a house there. And how God brought all this together on Beatties Ford, years ago, I ended up being one of the contractors to help the doctors build, Dr. Dawkins and several other doctors, when they built that new medical center on Torrance. Well, I was one of the contractors. Did all the metal framing and drywall work in that building. And so Suleiman Ilamin told me, you need to talk to Dr. Dawkins because he's retiring and that building is there. And so one day, Dr. Dawkins, and if anybody knew Dr. Dawkins, we stood outside and talked for hours. I know at least 3 or 4 hours. We stood right outside that building and just talked and talked. He said, I tell you what I'm doing, friend. I'm going to turn the building over to you. And when you get your license and all and start making money, then you can pay me rent. And so I did. And at the time, I had also started a ministry called Christian Women of Elegance. So we had over 100 women, and these women were in all walks of life. But then God also blessed me with Dr. Teresa Edwards, who was a professor at Central. And she was a psychologist, and she helped me get the license, and we wrote up all the policies and stuff. So 15 years ago, we started Beatties Ford Road Family Counseling Center. And Dr. Dawkins would always tell me, friend, you need to teach your trade to the next generation. So after Dr. Dawkins passed, that thing just stayed in my mind. And so I gathered some contractors together. I said, guys, we need to open up a facility where we can take our trade and give it to the next generation. So it was about 6 or 7 of us. We put as much money as we could on the table. And I said, and we got to do this legitimately. So we went ahead and found out about the National Center of Construction Education and Research, which is the largest construction training facility or educational institution in the United States and abroad. So, and we had a sponsor. We had to go through a sponsor, which was the Carolinas AGC office. So we all took classes, and we had to prove that we were journeymen, and we got our certification as instructors. And then we took the money that we raised and put that money towards getting our certification and licensure for the facility. And then 3 years in, we went ahead and got licensed that we can open up a school anywhere in the United States or abroad. So in 2016, with the help of 6 to 7 people, we opened the Beatties Ford Road Vocational Trade Center. And we came across a lot of obstacles because we were the new kid on the block. So some things were happening to us when we were trying to become a vendor with NC Works. And so you got to be on probation. Well, Why? Is that customary? So we went through a lot. And so stayed on for probation from 2016 to 2023. And then finally, they said, and I'm not going to go through all what we went through, but we are no longer a vendor right now with the local NC Works. As we were continually growing, in 1 year, we referred over 100 and something people to NC Works, and only 2 came back. They were all dispersed to other training facilities. And our school, being nationally credentialed, and we are also credentialed by the North Carolina Community College apprenticeship program, and we are now awaiting our proprietary license because we want to eventually be able to accept Pell Grants. I'm not one to give up easily, especially when God gives a vision. I always stand on faith that He will give the provision. We have a waiting list of over 400 people. And we found another way of trying to finance them coming in. We now have 3 companies that have said that they will provide scholarships, and then such as Hobart, Precision Wall just came in, and oh God, I can't think. The electrical company just went out of my mind. But these are companies that will provide the funding, tuition for young people to come to the school, and then they have a guaranteed job. And we have found in Charlotte, North Carolina, in dealing with especially young people, they have so many issues going on. It's like whatever way you start, unless you have an intervention, you finish that way. What was that? As Chetty study says, you're born in poverty, you die in poverty. Well, we want to be that intervention point to eliminate that. Everybody should have fair opportunity. And I have to, I have to be honest, in this city, things are not fair for people of color. If it had not been for me leaving Charlotte and coming back with the finances that I made in other states and country, I wouldn't have ever reached the financial plateau that I reached. My goal, I could do this because I didn't waste money. I invested, and my house is paid for. And whether I make a salary or not, things that I have will stay in place because they're paid for. I couldn't do this if my whole life finances depended upon it, because there's times when we have and there's times when we don't have. But God has not instructed me to give up, so I haven't. We are opening up a facility in Chester, South Carolina. And honestly, I did not have anything on my radar about opening another school. I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to continue with this. But I was called down to South Carolina to look at a radio station that's owned by someone there, because years ago, right before we had that riot with Keith Lamont Scott, I allowed a lot of young people to come in and have a meeting in the building. And they allowed me to sit in with it. And I said, what would y'all want us to provide for young people here for you to learn that could maybe open some doors of opportunity for you to learn a trade that can lead to a career? So they mentioned podcasting, videography and photography, graphic arts, and studio recording. These are what the young people are. So I, don't when God puts something in me and He gives me the go, then I'm gone. And so I began then starting to see how I can raise money, make money to start these studios. And so fortunately, we do have the studios upstairs. We were selected for a Safe Charlotte grant. And this is what this little, and we call it the PG-13 Tech Camp. And so a couple of years ago, we got the Safe Charlotte grant, and we began to buy equipment. And we got a grant to work with the Greer Heights community. We continued to buy equipment. We got a grant with shorter spectrum, so we bought a bus so we can transport young people to us. And so last summer summer before last, we began to teach children podcasting, videography, photography, and graphic arts. And all this stuff you see was designed by my son, who's a graduate of Savannah School of Arts, and he's the one that teaches graphic arts. So the blessing thing about us, from the time we began with the school, every student, and it's been a couple of hundred students now, that have come to us have graduated and are working in the industry. But what we found as these students would come in is such a deficiency in math and reading. When students start with us doing core is the prerequisite to all the construction trades. The second module in core is math, and it's on an 8th grade level. To date, we've only had 2 students that could come in and do the math. The others had to be tutored. And we have a student right now that we've been tutoring her. She's completed an electrical 1, but her math is I don't know, some kind of block there. She just cannot do, and it's trigonometry. You know, when they get into these mechanical trades and stuff, there's a lot of math. And we've had students that come straight out of high school, can't do 8th grade math. We had to hire a retired teacher to work with our podcast students last summer because they couldn't hardly read. So if they can't read, they can't write a podcast show. So a part of their podcasting was to take reading classes. I can't pinpoint what's all going on within our school system, but as a parent of 3 generations now, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, it has to start at home. We have to teach our children at home. And so we found that we've had to be more than just a school. We've had to provide tutoring, provide counseling. Our young people have so many issues going on in their life. You know, they're exposed to so much negativity at such a young age. When they come in, we're trying to mold a mind to think differently about life. Mr. Robinson, you said you've had so many great things to happen and how thankful you are. Our children, I can't tell you how many young people have come in and said, I'm probably not going to live to see 21. And death doesn't mean anything to them. Death and dying is just a part of life. And so we have to instill hope into them. There was a young man, he came to me, he said, Ms. Hall, I'm going to stop selling drugs because I want to come in here and learn concrete. And I think I can make enough money. He said, my father was a concrete mason, but he did nothing for me. So we got everything arranged for this young man to come in and take classes. And he was murdered off of Statesville Avenue behind a store over there off of Statesville. Young man this morning, before I came here, trying to reach his mind to think differently, that there is some hope for you. And he said, well, I got to get out here and do what I got to do because I have nothing right now. So, you know, these are some of the trials and tribulations that we face with our students, but we don't give up because I'm not a person to give up. And so we have seen lives change. In 2016, we had a young man by the name of Malik, and then I'll sit down for question and answers. But Malik came to us with a monitor on his leg, and he had an attitude from hell. And I told Malik, I said, Malik, look, your probation officer, because a lot of probation officers knew me from substance abuse. I am a substance abuse counselor, and I deal with people, whether they selling drugs or on drugs, because the court sends them all to some facility. So I've got to know some probation officers. And once we got the school open, I informed probation officers about the school. So Malik was ordered to come to us, right? And oh boy, I said, Malik, let me tell you something. You can act a fool in here and you'll be in prison. So you might as well take advantage of what we have to offer you. What trade do you want to take up? He said, well, I think I want to take up heating and air. Malik was one of those young men who I'm talking about. When he did the math, I said, Malik, you passed all your math. Oh my God, you. He said, oh man, I always loved math. And so I asked Peter Wute, who's one who was doing the core class. I said, Peter, push him and see what other kind of math he can do. So Peter said, I took him up to algebra, and took him to trigonometry, and he did it all. So he went through our HVAC class, and at the time I was dealing with Morris and Jenkins. So Malik disappeared a few days. And then when he came back, I said, Malik, where in the world have you been? And you right at the point of about to be hired by Morris Jenkins. I had to convince them to give him an opportunity despite him having a record. And he had just been doing crazy stuff, not any real bad felony type stuff, just misdemeanor craziness. And so they were going to give him this opportunity. I said, so where you been? And he said, Ms. Hall, I had to go out there and hustle up the money to get me some insurance, personal insurance, so I can get my license and stuff. I said, Malik, why didn't you tell me? And he said, now I don't have a car to go take the exam. So I said, Malik, can you drive an F-150? He said, yes. So I said, let's get out of here. Because Morris Jenkins only gave him to that day where he was going to lose the opportunity. So we went to the DMV in Huntersville, and he got his license. And long story short, I convinced Morris Jenkins to take him because I said, this is a diamond in the rough. This boy could calculate numbers in his head. I said, Malik, all the years you went to school, did anybody pick that up with you? He said, I kind of just kept it under the radar. Math just... I said, Malik, you ever thought about going to college and maybe becoming an engineer or architect? That's all. I don't want to go to college. I don't really like school. He just had that gift. So he ended up getting hired with Morris Jenkins. And then he called me one day after working there a few months. He said, they want to put me in their plumbing class. Should I go? I said, surely you should. Take advantage of everything they got. And so last year, he called me to let me know he was going to another company because he wanted to get the experience of doing commercial HVAC. So, and he's one of my Facebook friends. So I'm now watching him buy a home. He's got married and he's got a new baby. And these are what I see with a lot of our young people that have come through there. Because if you care, if you fight with them and understand, they are not just, the problem ain't going to be just school. You got to deal with some of them other issues that they have and be willing to show them a better way. And so that is what we've been doing. And now Chester, South Carolina. And boy, I thought we had problems here. It's about 100 times worse than there. And, but I thank God for what he's doing because one of the brothers from the nation, DJ Murphy, he's been teaching podcasting class, and he has turned me on to some other talented men with the Nation of Islam. And they came by yesterday and they said, we're going to finish laying all the carpet at the school. And they were doing all kind of work. And I was just sitting back like, wow, this is great. So we're going to get this, we're going to have grand opening December 12th. And they say, so we got to help you. We can't just be lip service. We got to help you. And so we have a 20,000 square foot building that was the old Belk building downtown Chester. And again, when God started doing stuff, he just amazes me because the gentleman that owns the building, I was looking at another building through another real estate person because somebody else recommended us to come down there. And when I went to this building, it was a church. And so my real estate broker who was with me, the lady was preaching. I I said, we get ready to sit down and enjoy this church service. He said, well, I ain't been to church in a long time. I said, that's why you need to be here. And so I said, I don't want to have anything to do with a church. If they're losing the church or whatever, I don't want this. So he said, well, I got a friend of mine that's a broker. And so I met Mr. Robinson. And when I told Mr. Robinson what I wanted to do, he said, well, I own an old belt building that I just been letting people store stuff in it. I ain't did nothing with it. I'll sell it to you. And for $30,000. And I said, well, sir, I don't have a full 30,000. He said, did I ask you for the whole 30,000? No, I didn't. He said, what do you have? I said, right now I got about 1,500. He said, give me that, and that'll be your down payment. How much can you pay a month? And we came up with, how much to pay a month, and we're about halfway done in paying for it. So we're going to have welding down there and all the trades that we teach here. We teach trades that's on a critical path of construction that garner the higher wages: metal framing, drywall, carpentry, plumbing, heating and air, painting, and electrical. So we are going to duplicate everything that we do here, including the counseling services there. And we are we're going to hire locals there in Chester. And they're going to be having a class next week where they have to do 2 days of training with the NCCR so they can get their teaching certification. They've already sent all of their documents in to prove that they're journeymen. And so, again, when God is taking you on this journey, you got to keep going. Now we are looking at opening a school in Alachua, Florida, and Miami. And there's a building in Miami that has been given to us to open up a school in Dade County. So that's my story.
Oh, wow. No. And we do have 2 questions so far, but I do want to say that I've been in your studio when Rockman Khan came.
Yes, the children did a podcast.
And they did a podcast, and I was in there.
Oh, okay.
And it was wonderful. But I think it was sponsored by Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just in awe of everything there that you were doing. So that was great. We have Tommy and then Winston.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and I certainly enjoyed your presentation. I didn't even know you existed, to tell the truth. I didn't even know that your school existed. But what my question is, like, what can the community do? I wish we knew more about it. How can we help you? How can we help you tell us about you? Because I didn't know you existed, to tell the truth,
Well, I stood outside the back door of Mr. Robinson of the building one day. And I said, Father, why do I always hear people say they didn't know anything about us? I guess those days are about to be over. But, and he said, because I hid you to do the work that you had to do for the people that needed it the most. And sometimes the more people know about you, the more situations and stuff you got to deal with. Now I know that people need to know about us. And we were talking about how we're going to market. I talked to the gentleman that owns the radio station, and they're getting ready to put some stuff out about us. But the only thing I can say is just, take our brochure, young people who need a trade, send them to us. Young people who may need counseling. We have mental health and substance abuse, send them to us.
Phenomenal presentation. I'm also like my father. I live in McCrory Heights, and I believe if that's the same place where Alicia Bryan had that Juneteenth festival. I even hosted that festival.
We had a table set up out there at the Juneteenth.
Yeah, were you there? Yeah, I was the dude hosting it. I was still here. So Yeah, but this does not even connect.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. I got so many questions. One of them is, what is your relationship like with Charlotte's corporate community, especially those with black leadership like Lowe's, which seems to align perfectly with your mission and with your values, as well as those connections with, still contracting with local government?
We have built some relationships with some corporations. Lowe's has donated tools and stuff to us, has given us a small grant before. We're in with CTE, which is the Caterpillar company. They've informed me we got one small grant from them, and they're informing me that they're going to go ahead and give us another grant this coming year. What we found is you have Goodwill, you have Urban League. These are the ones that have been on the block the longest, and they get the bigger amount of funding. When they give us funding, it's small amounts, 10,000, which when I say small, I appreciate anything, but if we were to get $250,000, $300,000, $500,000, then we can go into our list of people that we couldn't provide scholarships and be able to, fill the school up, and so, but what we do have, we make the best out of it. I had United Way to come and audit us after we did the Safe Charlotte grant, which was $50,000. I stretched that grant to over a year. And they said, how did you do that? I said, well, I must have put some more money with it because we were paying teachers and buying equipment. And then we had the grant to work with the Greer Heights community one year. That was like $20,000. And, we did everything that we could with that money. It just seems like, we're just always fighting, to kind of get ahead. And even though we show all of our successes, and we, to be honest with you, Urban League we did a grant together, and they didn't have the accreditation that we have, but now they've gone to and became an NCCR training site. I'm not sure if Goodwill is not an NCCR training site. And one thing I also found out from the state, and I guess they're kind of just letting things go, you are not supposed to even operate a school like this without a proprietary license. So we just had to pay $5,000 to get our proprietary license. And I said, well, what about all these other trade schools that are popping up, and they're just letting them do it. But, legally, you're supposed to have a proprietary license. So once we get our proprietary license, we're right on the level of Central Piedmont.
I got follow-ups.
Let me come back to you, Chris.
Hey, good morning. Is the waiting list for the vocational program or the counseling, the rehab aspect?
Well, when we're dealing with the people that we're dealing, the population, poor people, and I'm not supposed to say just poor black people because we've had just poor people come in, different colors. You must incorporate some mental health counseling. If a person comes to us from, re-entering the community from incarceration, we tell them we want you to, get an assessment so we can see what's going on with you. Because people have to get mentally well to be able to, and then we're finding out through the years that a lot of especially the men that come in our facility, physical health is another thing. They don't see doctors.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, I love your program, and I'm glad you came. But, where do you get your instructors from to teach these different crafts and trades, to teach all of this? I think, we built Charleston, Savannah for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad to see them trying to build somebody.
Yeah.
So where you get your instructors from?
You know,
don't think I knew.
for years, I was a part of the Minority Contractors Association.
Oh,
So what I did is, those ones that are now elders,
okay.
I tapped on them, and some of them even helped start the school. But that's where I was getting, I get the teachers from those that are retired or you know, still working, but
Okay, Jackie. Come on, please.
It concerns me that children are going all the way through the school system and can't even do eighth grade math. And I guess this is really not a question, but it's just concerning that they can go all the way through. And then on the opposite end, the student can have all of that knowledge, like, fully, and not even be recognized.
Mhm.
So I think there's something is wrong there, and I don't know how to fix it. But something is wrong there, because we're supposed to be about educating children.
there was a day that we had 35 children to show up, and I asked them all to just write one paragraph. I wish I would have brought it with me. One paragraph about what makes them special. And I'm gonna be honest with you, half of it I couldn't. We only had one child that could write something that was legible and made some sense. One child, and I met her father. And he came in, he said, reading is fundamental in my house. My children don't watch TV, they read. And she was 14 years old. She was the only one could write a legible sentence about herself and spell everything right. The rest of it, I could not. We even had a girl that was saying that she was getting ready to graduate and go to Greensboro College somewhere. And I said, baby, and I told the parents, I had to call them in because that thing had me in tears. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, because remember, I wasn't looking to see this kind of mess. And so when I called the parents in, I told them, I said, you know, guys, this is what your child wrote. Your child can't read and can't write. That's a situation that needs to be rectified at home. And then you go to the school. What is happening that your child can't write a sentence? And I didn't care about them getting mad at me because we got to deal with this.
But how can they keep?
But the parents can't, they got a problem. Some of these parents can't do math and can't read. So it's just, it perpetuates itself.
Yes. Okay, Jackie.
Tommy asked the question about where you get the instructors from, but you did mention earlier that they have to go through NCCER's certification for instructors.
Right, right. All of our teachers are certified instructors, and they have to go through 2 days of training. They are not trained on their trade because they have to prove that they are journeyman. They're trained on the different styles of learning, the different styles of teaching, the history of construction, the history of NCCR, and how to be because being a journeyman doesn't mean that you know how to be a teacher. So it's just preparing them for teaching.
Okay, I just want to make a comment and just follow up on something. Years ago, I had a program called the Young Councilman Association. I took the boys out to black businesses, males, particularly black male businesses. But she has one. I just want to know who Bryce is from. She has one of my brothers.
Bryce.
One of my young men, and I wanted to just get a follow up on him because his mother's was just related to the program. She told me about it, and him to go from. When I had him, we had the Murphy guy.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the radio station, and this little guy told he was the youngest one, about 8 or 9 years old, but he told that Murphy, because he asked him what he wanted to become when he grew up, and he said he wants to be a Lego. What is it? They do Lego
Design.
he wanted to be a Lego designer. That's what he said at 9 years old. And now he's with Fran. And the other thing is, you know, all of us need some help from time to time. And I've been dealing with Morris Jenkins and everybody else forever. I think I told Jackie that I needed somebody to do something with my heating and air conditioning system. And in less than 24 hours, she sent a young man to my house. It was late at night. He had his little girl with him. I don't know if that was Malik or not. But
Yeah, that was Mr. Brown.
okay, and he had his little girl with him, and he didn't charge me half as much as Morris Jenkins knows. And then he gave me a lot of advice, you know, and I just, you know, I said, so I know to call her if I need somebody to do some work around my house like that, you know, in the future. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that she had that, you know, that she had that working. And that's been recent. That's last year. It was last year. But Jackie told me, and we've got to get the word out, you know, that they're available, because we do call Mars, we call the big companies that's advertising on the radio and TV. But I just, you know, want to know how the two of them are going.
Bryce is working with an electrical contractor that I think that is family with, so he's working. But I applied for the Knight Foundation grant for art, and I'm hoping to pull Bryce back in, because though he's doing electrical work, his talent is art.
Yes, it is.
That young man can draw.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do with the young people, we have another piece of land sitting next door, and there's a company called the Boss Company. They make metal prefab buildings. I want to put 2 buildings there, one for a workshop and one for a gallery, where these children can do their artwork and display it to the public, because we're missing so much beautiful work and talent. I wish I would have, I think my laptop was in the car, but you should hear the podcast that the children made, 10, how old are they? 10, and I think the oldest was maybe 13, last summer with BJ Murphy on their perception of ending crime in their community. It's really something. So I'm hoping to take that lot and put 2 more buildings. I've already put a deposit on one. I think they're like $12,000 a piece. But one to have a gallery with art classes and stuff, and another to have a workshop, construction workshop.
Okay, Winston and then Tom.
Yes, so I graduated college from Winston-Salem State University. However, I also cannot do 8th grade math properly. It is incredibly difficult. However, I know I still have value in other arenas. Mm-hmm. Is it a way to tap, I guess, a child's potential without, I guess, that, you know, Arthur Griffin has me on the train of believing that some of those barriers are placed there systemically to cause those hindrances of advancement. So he believes, well, he has at least persuaded me that you should teach the kids how to take the test, as opposed to trying to, I guess, reintroduce an entire curriculum. So how do you approach the idea of just preparing them to take the test that holds them from the career, as opposed to just, you know, trying to teach them a concept, which is, you know, math or...
But math has a general concept that all of us have to use in daily life. So we don't teach to a test. We teach them general math. You know, because you gotta know. I don't know how you get around knowing math. You gotta know some general math. You got to.
To what level, I'm asking?
I mean, I guess to operate just daily, you need to be at least on an 8th grade level. You go in a store and you don't know if it says this, you're going to get 30% off of something. So how do you calculate that? You know,
8th grade a little above. What is 8th grade like? Trig, ain't it? Trig?
No. Algebra, geometry,
Geometry, algebra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good line math, algebra.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get into trig, you're like 12th grade. Yeah. But I'm gonna be honest with you. We have seen now every student that has come to us. That's why I told us teachers, don't teach it where you put one person on one level, another person on another level. Just teach math. And as they go and increase in it, just teach math. Don't make it something that's so, making it this wizard of, oh, this is going to be very difficult. All the students that have graduated in our mechanical trades have had to complete trigonometry.
Do they need it?
They need it for that trade. Most definitely. They got the volumes and all kind of stuff when you're dealing with those mechanical trades. And if I'm doing a drywall in this room, and you tell me, okay, Ms. Hall, hang drywall on all these walls. Well, I got to figure it out. So how do I figure out? Length times height gives you square feet.
And years ago, say 100 years ago, people even without formal education could do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
They couldn't do
My
that.
grandmother was something in that.
They could do that, but somewhere along the line we have lost that. And I think it's because we don't pass this down to the next generation.
No.
Usually, if you were a drywall person, your son was a drywall.
Apprenticeship.
It was in the family when your father taught you how to calculate
Apprenticeship.
and everything. But we've lost that.
And I hear so many people say, never fail. I don't like
How
that.
would they do in a class? You see what I'm saying? Like, it seems like.
But see, what she's saying is that classes are not necessary. You don't have to go to college to learn certain skills. Like the most effective way of educating somebody was apprenticeship. They got rid of apprenticeship and started colleges and institutions. They got rid of apprenticeship where, like, if I wanted to be a brick mason, I worked with a brick mason. I remember as a boy, I got a job one summer. The man told me I couldn't do it. He said, you're not going to be cut out to do that. And I worked with a brick mason. And I wanted to learn how to lay brick. But first I had to learn how to push brick. I had to learn how to push brick. And I worked about 4 or 5 days. And my stepfather told me, I know you couldn't do it. But like what she's saying is that there's other methods of teaching besides class.
That's what I'm saying. So how many are we losing by making them take the class instead of just saying, you could do this? But like showing them this is the why that you're taking the math. That's where I think people get lost.
Yeah, she said why.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just got kind of off track.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that, Winston, is that at this point, you can't just do like they did.
Yeah.
You too far gone. I'm thinking like that.
No, I am. Terrible at math.
People grew up in families that did that work. And they took their children with them to the job and taught their children even on the job. I mean, that's the way it used to be. And I'm saying now
It can't be like that now.
program.
Well, that's why they
We still have those avenues.
That's what they're trying to get back to.
No, we don't have those avenues because children have to be in school. They can't go out with their dads and do that work during the day when they're doing that work.
I guess what I'm asking, like the math would make sense if you showed me what it's used for.
That's
Then
what
when I
She just
Yeah.
told me.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so
When you go to her class.
when you go to the class, it's like it's a concept. Like, what is this? What does this mean? But if I'm out there on the job and I need to know how to get this square footage, when I go to the class, it's easily translatable.
But that's
You're saying that in high schools now, it's not true.
Let me say something because I have been quiet. I understand exactly what you're saying. My nephew can do any kind of electrical work. He will never, ever become a licensed electrician. He can never, ever pass the test. He had ADD. He was so far behind. He didn't know color when he was in the 3rd grade. He will never, ever pass that test. If someone can teach him how to pass the test, he's a great electrician. He wires everything in my house. I need to put over there, go put me one there. A light up here, put me one up here. He can do anything I ask him to do, but he'll never pass that test. Somebody can teach him just how to pass the test. he'd be a great electrician. Otherwise, he will never get his license.
Right. And that's
Okay,
unfortunate.
and then wait a minute. Is there some way we're gonna tell her to get that?
She's got another question. We got. We got, I'm gonna go you and then.
I feel like I'm finna cheat. Okay, number one, did you accept volunteers? And is the grand opening, did you say December the 12th?
Yes, in Chester.
Okay, do you think like a lot of, just speaking of those generations, systemically, you think these tests have been put into place to keep certain people?
Oh, yeah.
Within the school system?
Like just
I
everything.
can say this, and again, I've not taught in the school system like that, just in math and read, but I can say that something is definitely wrong when we can take young people and teach them math to the trigonometry level, and they come in, can't do 8th grade math, and they only with us 6 to 7 months. 6 to 7 months, but they can come back now. We have a program where they can continue to stack their certifications till they get to a journeyman level. But how do we, I mean, something is definitely wrong. If we can take you at 6 to 7 months and you doing the work when, and then another thing, I have some books in the car. It's those books that they go through. The first one is core. We go through every page. And the first thing I hear students say when they come in I didn't have any books. I just used, I do everything on computer. I said, you didn't never pick up a book.
Yes.
4 years of school, you never had a book in your hand? Well, that ain't happening here. You gotta read. You gotta read.
I wish there was some way that they could know these things before they finish and then have to learn it, It's a
Yeah.
shame. Okay, Pat.
Okay, you look young, so I don't know if you qualify. But you say you've been here a while, so I'm going off that. But there's a grant that's out. It's called Start.coop,
Stars?
START .coop, and it's basically it goes through the process, and they're giving out, I think, 250,000. So if you need some help, I can help you do it.
Okay.
But I saw it, and I've been telling everybody I know who's doing grants and stuff. But you got to be at least 50 or have somebody in your stuff that's 50.
Well, I'll be 65 in April.
Okay, so you
Yeah, so
qualify
I'm
plus
up there.
15.
There's a contact.
Thank you.
Work
Yeah,
this
we'll
out. Work
give
this
you my
out.
number.
Also, I don't know if you answered, do you take volunteers?
Oh, yes, we do.
What time is your opening?
We-
On the 12th?
I think, let me get your email and all, and I'll email you an invitation. Anybody who wants to come, if you could just put your email, because I'm not quite sure. I don't remember the time. I know we're dealing with, my granddaughter's a graduate of Johnson Wells. She's a chef, so she's getting the food and stuff together, and another person is doing the event planning for it.
That's a chef too.
Oh, okay.
Also, I understand what you're saying because I used to volunteer at one of these schools, and I had a young man that I was helping, and they took him from me because I got him one day because they went on a trip and his parents forgot to send out the thing, and I started doing him for like 3 weeks straight. He already knew how to read, knew how to use the dictionary. He just wasn't getting into flow right. His grades started improving. They took him. So they don't want our kids to see it.
I'm a strong believer that if we can get the men together, then we're gonna get the families together, and we'll have leaders for our community. So I got some guys that are working with me because I want to move out the way and let them, and I'll also share this with y'all, but this is the preliminary flyer that says Men's Weekend Retreat, 2 days to freedom. And we have, we're gonna have men to come and talk about mental health, effects of drugs on the body, leadership, family and community justice, manhood, spirituality. We're gonna have different workshops down there in Chester. So they'll have a weekend of being down there with all men. And we are getting facilitators from all over the country to come and be a part of this. And so I'm going to be advertising this in Charlotte, and men here who want to come to the retreat, we're going to use the bus to get them down there. We're dealing with hotels to have them to have a place to spend the night. But I am really excited about this, and we're pulling some of our religious community, and this is how I feel. It takes the block and the boardroom, and anybody else in between. So we have a nation, we have some Christian ministers that's getting involved, and so I will be sending this to y'all.
Send this to us so that we can put it on our.
I surely will. So it's going to be next year, June 23rd through the 24th. That's going to be our men's retreat for 2 days.
That was my next question, though. How involved is the religious community process? Black people events, church make more money than anybody. So how involved is the religious community in your program? Like teaching, crafts or trades, whatever.
Well, since we opened our doors on Beatties Ford, we sent out postcards to all the residents before we came in to let them know that we were coming in the community. I've written every church on Beatties Ford letters throughout the years, and the only donation that we've gotten for the last 15 years is from Friendship, and I think it was like maybe $500. I'm not gonna stand and lie about anything. I have to about stuff. So yeah,
I've had the feeling that
Okay, Jackie.
We were talking about the disconnection of the school system and young people who maybe want to go into trades. We've had the CTE person come in. What kind of linkages have been made there, and also with this new thing with Rocky McGregor, with ELI, who it is that's trying to bring things together? What kind of connection or linkages have been made there?
well, I know that we've done some job fairs or with different high schools, and I think we have maybe 3 on the calendar for next year. Honestly, I really think the biggest problem that we have with our school system and anybody else that's involved with the education of our children, there's too many games being played with the lives of people.
Yeah.
Too much politics being played. And I feel like when you want to help somebody and you want to, make some changes, you just make the changes. Let's look at what the problem is, and let's stop all of this mess and just do what it takes. Let's see what the problem is. Do what it takes to change it.
We got to do the change. Like we're totally dependent on somebody who tell you I hate you, and we want them to solve our problem. And I love your program. I just love them.
I think the Mr. Robertson, I think the biggest thing with us right now, and because we've seen successes, we're not hooked with no kind of politics, no kind of game playing, no kind of nothing. We just do what we got to do, and then been fortunate to have instructors that truly, truly want to teach their trade and help young people to move on with their life.
I have a question because, with your instructors, you said you're using like maybe retirees, whatever, but they have to go through that certification about how to teach and, that kind of thing, learning styles, and then they get a certification. Well then, and I know you probably can't answer this question, but I'm wondering why can't they be hired in the school system after they get that certification? Because when the CTE person was here, she said that those journeymen, the ones who've been doing it, they aren't certified, or they may not be college graduates, so they really can't hire them as teachers, So I'm just wondering, and it's not to you, but I'm just wondering in general, can't there be an exception for them if they've gone through that certification to be a teacher of those trades in the schools instead of saying, well, they're not a certified teacher.
Well, in fact, the certification that these teachers get from the nationally accredited organization, what NCCR has done is set it up where that program can go into schools, because NCCR has certified programs across the country and other places where these trades are taught in the school. So the school itself gets itself licensed as a facility to teach trades like we are, and they have certified instructors to come in. It's possible to do.
In other words, in Charlotte, they just don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. Okay, Laura, go ahead.
I want to say, Charlotte is over 1 million people that's living in Charlotte. Just Charlotte, not Mecklenburg County. No, Charlotte. You know, we got 1 million people. And it's so big. But everything that Fran is doing, I mean, it's a certain segment of the community that you're working with. But it's so big, and then with technology, and you know, with the social media thing, you know, we run into it. We run into a lot of stuff. But I applaud Fran for taking a segment of our community and making it work. So that's what we have to do. We have to focus on what she's doing and supporting her. And hopefully we understand, and this is a good conversation for us, but this conversation needs to be said, be had with Charlotte Mecklenburg School Board members, especially. It's a good time for them to hear something like this with the conversation. We need to have a conversation with them, and hopefully it will spread even more, because this is just a segment of the community that you're dealing with, and you're talking with us here and our listening audience. But Charlotte is so big, you know, who's going to listen? You know, who's going to adhere to it? Who's going to act on it?
Ms. McClady, I remember when we took some students one year that was referred to us that had just graduated out of the Mecklenburg County school system, and we shared with them, you know, where they were going to be working and all. So they had me on a Zoom meeting, some of the school board members, and asking me what was going on in the school. And I told them about it. You know, but it went nowhere. It seems to me that if you're not part of that same status quo,
right,
then you just can't click or whatever. Right. And that's what's hurting us. And you know, one of my I looked at, I didn't make Pastor Gould's funeral the other day, but as you know, some of us are in here young, but as the elders of our communities now, if we don't maybe come together and say, you know, enough is enough, we got to make some changes for that next generation and bring them out of this hopelessness and let them know you can exceed. You don't have to, all that mess about you living in zip codes, that being born in poverty, dying in poverty. When I was working over in Greertown, and they said the average salary over there was $16,000. I said, well, look, this gotta end. If I put back on my tools right now, I'm not working for under $100 an hour. Nowhere. Okay? So we could get our children to that point. My son started off in trades at the age of 14 and 15. I would take them on job sites with me, and I would have the guys teach them, let them know that they don't have a father. Can y'all please step up and help my sons so they can be, you know, focused in on something other than what that world got out there to destroy them. So now Willie, my oldest, is a project manager for J.E. Dunn. J.E. Dunn don't have no black project manager. We need more. The Bohemian Hotel, that beautiful hotel on Tracy, he was the project manager to build that. The new Atrium. Yeah, the Atrium Hospital. They just built a new cancer unit for children. He's the project manager. Now he's still building the new stem cell the Veterans Hospital. He was the project manager on there.
Wow.
So he's 40-some years old, but he's been in it all his life. Even though he went to college, he came right back to construction.
That's what we're
You know-
saying. These people, that's why we're saying this. What you were talking about is that those people that do that have been in it all of their lives.
And this is Malik, y'all, who I was talking.
Let me see. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this young man, we convinced him to go, he's at A&T. And this is a brother and sister team, and both of them are in HVAC now.
You know, I want to say this too, that I was looking at on Thanksgiving Day, we watched 3 NFL football games, okay? First, second, and the third. And it was a chance for, at each game, during halftime, they saluted their staff that works behind the scenes. You know, so they took you inside, you know, showed the camera room where they're doing this and the podcasters or whoever. But it was all, you know, about IT. All of them were IT. Even the people that were on the field doing the camera work and everything. And I was just appalled at how few. Most of them didn't have any, not one black. And the ones that you had maybe 1 or 2. And I said, I know that we can do that.
Well, we have IT now. We have an IT lab that we use money from charter, so we have an IT lab. And now we are exposing all of our students will have to take IT and customer service.
Yeah, I think we have to teach our, you know, I think it's, I admire you for establishing programs for teach our own. You know, I think we have been too dependent on somebody else to teach us certain trades and stuff. We built America. We built jobs. We built some down, but we can't build for ourselves. And I hate that.
Okay, Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie and then Winston, I think that would
Fran,
be it.
Can you tell us how much it costs to complete the program, 6 to 7 months, and what payment options folks may have?
Okay, so the total for the 6 to 7 months is $5,950. But that includes all the books. They get to keep their 2 trade books. They have to give us core back. That includes all of their testing, because every time they test into a system, the NCCR system, that qualifies them to get their certification. And it also includes their certification. So when they get their certification, they also get a card, looks like a little credit card, that has their student ID number on the back. And any legitimate company that's in the construction industry knows about the NCCR, so they can take their certification and work anywhere in the United States. And what we have here, we're working with Mia Share, and this is a company that the students can either take a loan for the money, and then they don't have to start paying it back until they get a job making at least $20,000. And I can tell you, every student that graduates from us, they're making more than $20,000 out the door. Or they could pay a deposit of $500 and do a payment plan for the 6 to 7 months that they're with us.
Okay, Winston.
What does capacity building look like in a virtual world?
Us having virtual classes. I just finished dealing with a company called Connectivity, and they're setting us up to have virtual classes. What it'll be as a student, you know how even the college world has it where you can take virtual class and you have to come on site. So they'll have to come on site to do their hands-on. And they have to come on site to do their testing, because it has to be a proctor in the room when they test.
Right.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say before we close? Nathalie and then Tom and Chris.
I want to know, but did your daughter that's on drugs?
Yes. She's been clean now for about 10 years.
All right. Go, mama.
And I raised her 4 children. One is Winston-Salem graduate. I don't know what year you graduated, but she's working on,
04.
Okay, yeah. So I don't remember what year she graduated, but she is getting her master's in healthcare management. and she's now in the nursing school. Deanna graduated from Johnson Wales as a chef, and she constantly goes back getting certifications and different things. And Denise is at Johnson C. Smith. She'll be graduating first of next year, and then she's decided she wants to go to FAMU. The youngest is a graduate of Mallard Creek. He was one of their football stars. Got an offer to go to Alabama, declined it, said he needed a year, his body needed a year of rest from being hit. So he's taking classes at Central Piedmont in, what's it called? Something to do with, oh God, just went out of my head. Sports medicine. Sports medicine. And then he said he's going to go to Alabama next year. Yeah, he had been playing football since he was 4. That was his choice. I don't get hit like that. So he said, no, Mom, I need it. Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, but they told him he could come back next year.
Wow.
He's taking some classes, and that's what he wants to do.
How long have your program existed? Because I know where you are, but I didn't know you had this type of program. So how long have your program existed?
The school started in 2016.
Okay.
The mental health and substance abuse has been there for 15, going on
I know
16
about
years.
mental health and substance abuse. I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
the trade school.
And remember, the guys, we started off with nothing. I mean, all of us came up with maybe $1,000, $2,000. We opened a school. And the guys literally, we had to show that we had all these tools for the school. The guys brought their own tools in. And when they came to audit us to make sure that we had all the tools for each trade, the guys put up their tools, so.
So, Fran, what can we're a small group, right? What if we were to share your story with someone, what else could we possibly do to assist you? So you can just keep the quality that you're providing for the community.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. The biggest thing right now, we got to find a way. Number one, we need to get back into NC Works. If you want me to share the whole program, what happened, how they just throwed us out on lies, I can do that. We need to be in NC Works. We're right, just like I shared with them, we're at ground zero. Why would y'all take us out? I mean, and it all happened when I started asking the question, if I'm referring this many students to y'all, why are y'all sending them somewhere else? One student refused. He said, I live right down the street.
Yeah, they took you out because you were doing something. You got a program that's really.
I even had a counselor from NC Works to come and say, because she quit, she said, you were doing a lot of our work. All the people that you were referring to us, that means we didn't have to go out in the community so much. And she said, what they did to you, I just can't work. I can't work.
Yeah.
I can't work. Now
They have somebody else that they're trying to move up. That's what it is.
And we're still certified with the state NC Works. We could go anywhere outside the county. They just got into where they took. How can you? And then when they were doing all this, they asked for our contract. I said, you never gave me one. You put us on probation in 2016, never gave us a contract, even though all of these teachers were journeymen, and we proved that we had all this certification that other people didn't have. So then I hired a lawyer, $6,000, paying a lawyer. Then they said, well, we're going to send you the contract today if you don't sign the contract. Now, we started in 2016. They want us to sign the contract this year. This is when this happened, this year. So I signed the contract thinking that, okay, they'll go ahead and put us back in, because how are you going to hold us to anything that you never gave us? You never gave us any processes of how we're supposed to operate. And from the years that we were doing it, only time anybody came to check out anything was when they gave us all of those, when we had all the homeless people on the street. They started sending us, that's the most we ever got at one time. They started sending us men that they were taking off the street, put them in that ESG program. So we had one guy come in class talking to himself. I said, well, wait a minute. You can't send us people with mental illness and don't tell us. Now, we can give them some mental illness help if we know what we're getting. Y'all not even sharing with us what we're getting. You're just throwing stuff at us, and that's going to help us to fail.
You got a program. You got a program that's contributing. You got a program they don't want that. And for us to leave people is wrong. They don't want that. You know,
Okay, but
you got a successful
you're right.
program.
Okay. I hate for this to end because this is just so wonderful. I mean, I hope that the virtual audience heard every word of this. But we want to thank you so much. Just give her
Thank you for having.
so much. As an artist, so when you start your art school,
Thank you. Matter of fact, I have a number of young people I would love for you to come over and speak to them. Thank you so very much. And see their artwork. I have a young man by the name of Tracy Williams. I just bought some of his artwork the other day and I'm gonna put it up.
sell
That's
art.
That's the best
They
thing.
sell their art.
That's the best thing you can do. Just like a Chinese don't try to sell like you know, 52 years. I've been in shows all over this country, and the Chinese don't try to sell.
So let me-
They ever sell their art.
that's why I want to put the gallery, and I'm hoping that we get this Knight Foundation grant for the arts, and then we can really give our young people an opportunity to show what they can do because we got some talent in Charlotte. We got some talent in Charlotte.